All right, we are here today for our QMHS training. QMH stands for Qualified Mental Health Specialist. Sometimes it's called QBHS, which is Qualified Behavioral Health Specialist, but they're one and the same. So if we can, what we're going to do today is, if we can, just go around and, we did it last week, but say our 15-second commercial. But the objective, yeah. So we'll start there. So we can do your introduction, and okay. Here we go. So introductions kind of go like this. My name is Mr. Peterson. People call me when they need me. I'm really good at organizing and strategizing. I'm here because I want to help train up excellent, qualified mental health specialists. I expect to get a lot of feedback and learn a lot from you all's experience and what you have to offer to the class. So I'll throw it out to Catherine.
Hello, everyone.
East Dayton, Catherine.
Yes, I'm Catherine. My name is Catherine. People call me Catherine, Cat, Brianna. I'm really good at. I heard you say something about what people call you for as well. I guess I'm like the education coordinator, and yeah, so educationally based things around. I'm really good at encouraging people and just understanding people like where they are. And I'm here because I want to get a great understanding of what it takes to be a QMHS, QBHS, and I expect to learn from everybody here too. This is a good, intelligent group, and I'm excited to get insight on this topic.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Peterson, it's on you.
Okay, I'm Mr. Peterson, also known as Landy or Pete, depending on the time of life. I'm good at motivating people. I'm good at motivating, and I'm here to expand my tool belt to that end. And I expect to have my tool belt expanded by the interaction with the facilitators as well as classmates.
Mike, it's on you.
I am
Oh, my bad. Hold on.
That's
Excuse me. I like that Browns hat. Reporting from Cleveland, Ohio, sir.
okay.
Yes, sir. Rough season, but it's gonna be all right.
That's right.
So,
one thing you could count on was your quarterback throwing the interception somewhere in the game, and it's going to be a pick six. You can count on that.
Easy now to know. You can also count on Dayton not having a team. Be nice now. Be nice. Be nice. Be nice and jump on. I digress.
Well, my name is Michael Sanders. People call me Mike or Sanders. I'm really good at being patient and understanding or empathetic. I am here because I care about kids and I want to be a better example and a better leader for that population. And I expect to learn and grow throughout this program.
All right, Ms. Murray, it's on you.
My name is Donnell Elmore Murray. People call me Mrs. Murray or Miss Nell. I'm really good at helping others. I'm here because I need to learn something new and to help. And I expect to make a difference every day.
I got something on the bottom of here. I want you guys to look. I didn't really talk about this last week, but can you guys see that at the bottom? Those four words at the bottom.
Yes.
Love, yep, helping others.
Clinical love and helping others. Clinical love and helping others. And we'll come back to that. But when you at first glance, when you look at those words, what comes to mind? Let's just take the first one. Let's just take clinical love. When you hear that term clinical love, what comes to mind?
I really like that term, clinical love, because I think of it as like, to me, it's like it's the same a little bit as unconditional love. Like, okay, I understand, and it going along with our assignment also. Like, okay, we know these type of people. We know what clientele we're dealing with, so we're gonna show this love and this care, not necessarily trying to get on their good side or anything like that, but showing that love and that care that they need for whatever they're dealing with.
That's good. Anybody else? Clinical love. Okay. By the time we finish this, I think we will have a good idea of when we talk about clinical love, what that looks like. All right. So we are going to. So the objective for today, of today is to educate participants on your role, responsibilities, qualifications, ethical standards, and regulatory compliance of a qualified mental health specialist per the Ohio Administrative Code. We did the introduction. Boom. And now we're going to talk a little bit about roles and responsibilities. The duties and scope of practice. So the first duty and scope of practice is to provide community psychiatric supportive treatment services, to provide therapeutic behavioral services and mental health assessments under the supervision of a licensed mental health specialist professional. So that would be our LSW. That would be Mrs. Patricia Letford would be our LSW, or our LPCC, which is higher than the LSW. So we do have those mental health professionals that will sign off on those assessments. Implement individualized service plans developed by a licensed practitioner. Again, that's going to be our licensed social worker. That's going to be our Ms. Patricia Leffert, or that'll be Catherine Johnson, who's our education director. Catherine, can you talk a little bit about what an individualized service plan is?
Yes, an ISP, individualized service plan, is done every 90 days. It's basically we're like a compilation of client goals and their objectives, how to get to those goals, and keeping progress on the goals.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mr. Peterson, in your world back in education, what was you guys had, what was that called for special ed that you guys had? It's was it ISP?
I
IEP,
IEP.
IEP.
So
Yeah.
talk about an IEP, what that looks
They-
like in the education world.
Very similar, with the exception, they have the individual goals, but those goals are very specific to the student's disability.
Yeah.
But what they have in common is that they map out a plan. So they get
Yes.
specific enough to say, student will remain in their seat 40% of the time, 40% of the time, and it's based on where they are. It's not necessarily based on any it's not put in a box where it says this is where, like a template or boilerplate, like this is where you have to be. It's based on their past performance, and then also the parents have input, as well as the intervention specialists, which are the special ed teachers, as well as anybody else that are directly involved in the education of the child.
Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. So so again, we're talking about the roles and responsibilities of the QMHS. Also, to conduct client engagement, like we have to engage with the client. That looks like developing rapport, assessing needs, and promoting community integration. If you had to pick one, if you have to pick one of these things, Catherine, or and if you want to do, if you want to throw a lifeline out to Mike, you can do that as well. But if you had to pick one, which one would you pick as the most? They're all important, but the most important.
Of the first one, because without that relationship build, or without them feeling comfortable, you really won't get too far in any assessments or trying to get them involved in anything with the community. What you think, Mike?
I agree. I know it's a quote that says, people don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. Like that's especially true with kids.
Man,
Definitely.
especially kids that go through trauma.
Yeah.
I mean, and you see it in the class. We see it in the classroom because we got a couple of educators on today, but kids don't. Urban kids learn because they like their teacher.
Mm-hmm.
When they get mad at their teacher, they don't want to learn. And so that's developing rapport. That's relationship. So the other thing that QMHS does is that they assess the needs assessment. What does this person need? Not just mentally, but what do they need? Do they need some food? Do they need electricity? You know, just what do they do? And that's where that kind of that case management part comes in. And then promoting community integration. So again, say it again.
Oh no, I was just looking at the assessments too. Assessments are done like you have your formal assessments, but you also have your informal assessments that are just, kind of observation, how the kid speaks, the tone of what they're saying, what they aren't saying.
Yes.
So I would say that those two go hand in hand, but I think coming from a background of like where we did a lot of assessment and that was the basis of everything, I would say assessment and rapport are one and the same because of the informal ability to assess, but which you can develop rapport kind of without a formal assessment. I'm sorry, you can assess without a formal assessment. So I would say both of those are kind of 1A and 1B. But the assessment, though, without that assessment, you have no idea of where to go. I mean, that you have to have that roadmap. And again, with the informal assessment, you can probably get information that will also build rapport too. So,
Yep, absolutely.
yeah, just another perspective. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Those assessing. And then promoting community integration, getting them back integrated into the community. Now, this assessing of needs also is captured in our progress notes. And we'll come back to, you guys will hear about that, because the progress note is what drives the whole process. If you don't have a progress note, it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And those progress notes capture things like, what was the child's mood? What was the client's mood when they came in? What was their disposition? How did they present? Is what they say. How did the child present? So these are some of the duties. Now, this whole community psychiatric supportive treatment, I'm like, what is that? What is that? Let's see here. Let me go back here. So CPST is what is called for short. CPST. Let me go back to share my screen here. So activities under community psychiatric supportive treatment, ongoing assessment of needs, assistance in achieving personal independence and in managing basic needs, facilitation of daily living skills development. So, I mean, depending on, daily living skills, that could be hygiene. That could be, anybody have any other examples of daily living skills under community psychiatric support treatment?
Work etiquette, how to keep a job, get a job and keep a job.
Yep, how to get a job and keep a job, yep. How to clean up after themselves.
How to make
Nutrition.
Nutrition, yep, nutrition. Coordination of the individualized service plan. Again, these are key activities under community psychiatric supportive treatment. And if you notice, none of this stuff has really started talking about having a group yet, right? None of this, we haven't even got into actually doing the groups. But these are the things that are going on behind the scenes, running in the background as you're doing your groups. So coordination of individualized service plan involves linking to formal community services and systems. Can anybody give me an example? Maybe Patty, could you give me welcome, Patty, by the way. Guys, this is Patricia Ledford. She's our LSW. She comes to us from, she comes from us to us from education. She was a special education director at New City Schools. Patty, give us what you think.
Okay, now what was the question again? I'm sorry.
So linking with formal community services and systems as part of this psychiatric supportive treatment for QMHS. What would that look like? Linking.
Individual service plan?
Yes.
Well, I mean, the individual service plan has goals on it. And so, like if there's a behavior goal,
Yeah.
anger management. So what kind of things are going on in the group? What kind of things are you talking about in the group, that would be helpful with the client, to help them, maybe give them some
Yes.
skills to help them manage their anger,
Yeah.
or
Absolutely.
redirection, point things out, or are you starting? I see that you're starting to get, it looks like you're starting to get angry. What can you do? What can you do to before you get to that point, where you get aggressive or
Absolutely. And so as part of that coordination, when you talk about linking to formal community services and systems, could somebody give me an example of what kind of formal community services we can link our clients to?
After school programs.
After school programming. Yeah, that could be one. I was
That may-
thinking, I was thinking that some of our groups may be the actual after school program. That's why I hesitated. But if you're working with an adult client, that would be appropriate. Absolutely.
Library, the Wise, things like that.
The library, the YMCA, yep, those are services. Now, what about systems?
Job and family services, maybe.
Job and family services. Okay, now under that's a broad umbrella. So under job and family services, what's included?
Their medical services,
Medical benefits, food benefits. What else?
I guess that's
cash assistance. Cash assistance.
Yes,
utility assistance as well.
Utility assist. Yes, those. What are some other systems that we can link our clients to? That's great. What else? Somebody already said you
which one? Which age group are we talking about? Are we talking about so even if they're like a teen in our program or group home thriving,
that's another system. BMV. Yep. I think we generally got it covered. Housing. Oh, how did we forget housing?
Housing, yeah.
Housing, yes. Absolutely.
Food again. I think Captain mentioned food.
But you know what? Also food banks. As QMHSs, you all should keep, and we have these for sale. These for our our GPS to success booklets. And let me see, let me see, can't even see it.
Let me say this one too, that before I forget, it's just the one like for them to socialize and have friendships and have outings and be around people in the community too as well, healthy relationships.
Yeah, and if you don't have one, get a journal, because as you are building these networks with linkages to community services and systems and things like that, sometimes it's hard to keep it all in your head. Write that stuff down and put it in there and keep it. Now, obviously, you can also put it in your phone as well and save it. So whatever method you use, but definitely, because you're going to go back to it time and time again. You're going to go back to that time and time again. So please feel free to use that. Let's keep going here. Assisting with access to natural support systems. What are natural support systems? Natural support systems are next of kin. What's another? Patty and some of the other clinicians, help me out here. Other natural support systems could be a brother, a sister, could be a church as a natural
Yeah.
support.
Mm-hmm.
What's some other natural support?
Well, I was going to say anything they may already have kind of in place
Yeah.
as kind of a go-to. Could be friend,
Yes.
a certain friend,
Yep.
definitely family members.
And these are
Oh,
some of the questions that we find out during the assessment also. But one of the questions, like, who is your support system? Who's your team? Let's say the kid's name is John. Who is on Team John? My cousin, my teacher, my coach, my stepmother, whatever. Those are natural supports. Absolutely. Symptom monitoring. Again, these are key activities under CPST. Monitoring symptoms, coordination and assistance in crisis management and stabilization. So I kind of talk about this as like talking them off the cliff. Now, that doesn't mean that you always have to do it, but you have to know where to call to get the help if you need it as well. So crisis management, when crisis management is a situation where a client is losing it. That's probably not I know that's not the technical term for it, clinical term for it, but they are losing control. Has anybody had any experience in terms of what we had to do with crisis management and stabilization, and maybe how you handled it? And when I say that, I'm probably talking to Miss Patty, probably talking to Miss Catherine. How did you handle those situations when a kid or a client is going into crisis?
First of all, I know if a client is in crisis, I think it's important to have some quiet time. So like if they're going off, I shouldn't be trying to talk to them in the midst of that. I should kind of give them their time and let them get everything out,
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
affirm them and give them that time and affirm them, let them know I see what you're feeling. I could understand, maybe
Yep.
it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be upset. That's a natural emotion. We want to make sure that we don't hurt ourselves while we're upset or hurt other people, or tear things up beyond when we're upset. But that's
Yeah,
okay to be.
absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else? Crisis management could be you coordinate a call with emergency with EMS.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What I've seen done, if they're in a crisis, kind of get like Brianna said, get them isolated, let them, with somebody who they trust on the team, one of their teammates within that organization or, facility is, just kind of stabilize them and let them vent or just be quiet if that's what they need to do. And then in the meantime, you have other teammates, like you were saying, working on making critical calls. If they, if it needs to, if the situation is
Mhm.
beyond, what we provide, in house, you're making the calls in the background where they're calming down, and then you kind of, keep them on the line, so to speak, and
Yep.
then you kind of move from there depending on how much you're able to get them stabilized, or if not, yeah.
And sometimes those calls could be that crisis management call could be to one of their natural supports,
Right. Depending on the situation, correct. It could
depending on
be
the situation. Yep.
anywhere from one of them to actual. We got a potential. We got a suicide.
Yes.
We got
Yes.
suicide. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Advocacy. Anybody else on that? Okay. Advocacy and outreach. So we're advocating for, advocating for our clients. I think we have is Dolores McElroy, or is that you on the iPhone? You got somebody that's on the iPhone. By the way, just also while I'm thinking about it, please, we take attendance. Go ahead and put your name and your email address in the chat. That's how we take attendance. So again, if you can put your name and your email in the chat, that would be great. Okay, advocacy and outreach, education and training specific to the individual's assessed needs. So that could be job training. It could be anything really, because it's going to tie right back to the ISP, the individualized service plan. Mental health interventions addressing symptoms and behaviors to remove barriers to education and employment. Now, these mental health interventions, um, Patty, Patty, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but I'm just drawing on your experience. Could you give us some examples of some mental health interventions that we might be able to use at our intervention in mental health interventions to remove barriers to
Okay.
education and employment?
Okay. Let's see. Ongoing assessment. I'm looking here.
When I think about a mental health intervention, I think about something like being able to teach them breathing techniques if we're using anger management as
Yeah.
the diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of mental health intervention would we use in that situation?
What like for breathing techniques?
No, for anger management.
Oh, okay. Well, help them to come up with some things that they would be comfortable with using, like a deep breathing technique, or remove yourself from the situation, take a break.
Mhm.
Um, Depending on where they're at. Let's see, mental health interventions addressing symptoms and behaviors to remove. Okay, barriers to education and employment.
So if that anger gets in the way, if somebody says hi to them and they just go off,
Yeah.
we need to teach. So part of their ISP, we need to teach them some of these interventions.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody asks them a tough question, instead of them getting frustrated, part of that intervention is to show them how to coping skills and how to work with that. Now,
Yeah.
we're all thinking about this as we are the facilitator in the group, right? We're the QMHS. And so you have this mental health, it's an issue. It's an issue because they told you about it. Hey, how did the job interview go? Man, I didn't get that job. They whatever, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
like, well, what happened? Man, they asked me a question about something, and I went off on it. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. Let's talk about that. And so you may not have a specific mental health intervention in your head, but what you can do is, because we'll have weekly supervisions, you can call a Patricia Letford and say, hey, Miss Patty, I have a question. And run that by her, and you guys can kind of come together, come up with some interventions that you can use the next time.
Uh,
Or Miss Catherine.
well, I was going to say you might be able to find out some of this information in the assessment. Like if they
Yeah,
do, like for instance, if they do have anger issues and like employment, I mean, maybe they don't do well with being told what to do, you know,
yeah,
um, or, in a certain kind of way, the way it's presented. I mean, obviously you're going to be told what to do on your job, but, like find out, how, what, and when somebody approaches you, you know, what are the kind of things that you do get mad about, you know, or help them, like as far as an employment, help them, you know, understand, you know, what are the skills of a good employee,
Yeah,
you know,
those kind of things.
what makes a good employee,
Hmm.
and at least find out, you know, a couple, two or three maybe that they agree with or agree upon, you know, and help them build those skills.
And absolutely. And then finally, activities that empower the individual to positively influence their environment. So these are all of the key activities under CPST. Any questions? Any comments? Yeah, let's keep it going. Assessment of needs. Okay, and then when we talked about the community, the mental health assessment, I'm going to give you, we're going to go with, give you the clinical definition of this mental health assessment. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So a mental health assessment is a comprehensive evaluation used to determine an individual's psychological, emotional, and behavioral health status. This process helps identify mental health conditions, assess the severity of symptoms, and develop appropriate treatment plans. Key components of the mental health assessment are the clinical interview, the medical and psychiatric history. And again, clients come to us with this. And so we'll have some of this information, things like that. Cognitive and emotional evaluation. This is assessment of thought processes, emotional stability, mood, and overall psychological well-being. Behavioral and social functioning. This is an examination of how an individual interacts with others, manages daily responsibilities, and copes with stress. Risk assessment. This is a screening for self-harm, suicidal ideation, or potential harm to others. And so these are all of the things that are included in a mental health assessment. Standardized psychological tests, if applicable. So we'll use diagnostic tools such as depression scales, anxiety screenings, or personality assessments. And then diagnosis and treatment planning. From all of these things, from 1 through 6, we develop an individualized care plan, which may include therapy, medication, or community-based services. Okay. All right. We are going to take a 5-minute break. I'm going to put a video together here real quick, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about it. But at this point,
That was a great video.
yeah, same, absolutely the same. I've never heard that.
I think that's where the case management comes in too.
You know, and she gave us it does, and she gave us an assignment that I want us to be able to complete for next week. And the assignment is to write down 3 coping skills, and maybe let's just do 2 in each area. You got the sensory coping skills, the cognitive coping skills, the active coping skills, and the connection coping skills, right? Let's do 2 of those under each. Let's do 2 of those under each. I mean, 3. So we can start this together. Okay. So can anybody give me an example of a coping skill for any coping skill? Let's just talk about that. And then we'll put it in each of the whatever category.
Big coping skill for, like you said, sensory, in a big, so some I think of myself, obviously, some like in the trainings, even though I know we're thinking of ourselves as clinicians, but a sensory need that I like is like being compacted, or like a weighted blanket or a hug or something like that. So I would say a coping mechanism in a but then it also talks about the different areas. So in a at work, I probably won't be hugging people, but at home, I think that would be a home sensory would be a hug from
I think
family.
she said sensory would be the connection.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then the weighted blanket would be, I'm sorry, sensory would be the weighted blanket. The connection coping skill would be a hug.
Okay.
Yep.
What was the one after sensory? What was the group after sensory?
Cognitive.
Cognitive. Okay.
Okay.
Cognitive, she said like a puzzle would be an example of something cognitive. Anything else? Y'all help me out
Drawing.
here.
She said drawing and art. It would be cognitive, like coloring a picture, painting.
Journaling under cognitive.
Oh yeah.
And then under sensory, I know one that I use, I don't know if a lot of people like get a benefit from it, but incense.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
I like that one
Yeah.
too.
Good smells. Yes. Yep. Yep.
Now, active, I would say working out, like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Get moving. Yes.
Right, right.
Yes.
Moving.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
What would cooking be? Would that be active or more,
That
or
would
is
be
that more
active.
sensory?
That would be active.
Oh, that could
Can
be a
that go into
few.
sensory too for the
Yeah.
mouth for the
That's
Okay,
what I was
put that.
thinking.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So
And
cooking,
the
we put it
smell,
under
the
both.
textures. It's a lot, but yes, cooking is yeah.
cognitive too for that one? And it's connections. I would say that's one of the best ones because the
Mm-hmm.
cognitive is the learning and the mixing and the measuring
Yeah,
and getting your mind off of other things and thinking.
exactly.
And then the connection is the food and
Yes.
eating it at the end.
That's so crazy
Oh,
that you
listening
mentioned
to
that
jazz
because
music too, by the way. Go ahead. Listening,
yes,
thanks. Yeah, listening to jazz music.
cooking lately has been has been such a good a good thing to do. A lot of times we think of
Mhm.
cooking as like, oh, I've got to cook, but lately it's really been very stress relieving.
Talk to
So
me.
are you talking about you as an individual, or are you talking about you as groups with your kids?
I'm talking about individually,
Okay.
and that you say that at the group home, the kids have been wanting to cook and wanting to help and been able to help with that process. So it helps them
Mm-hmm.
too.
I think
Yeah.
that's what they always say, like in the family style, like the
Mm-hmm.
family style eating is so important to families, and that's when they can get those connections and they can work through, family issues. And I just want to say, like, sometimes as a like a cultural thing, I'm not saying what cultures, but they're saying now like we're all on our devices, we're all like out of that connection where we're in the family can find out things like what's going on with you, how
Yeah.
have you been, and
Yeah.
help them work through and process those things
Absolutely.
that are going on. Mm-hmm.
No one.
So you know what? That would leave us back to something from a connection standpoint, as simple as talking, reaching out to a family
Talking.
member,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
just talking. Wow.
Wow.
I think the
Hmm.
sitting down too is like where they get the guidance too from, like or maybe a child would say, well, I hit when I don't like something, or I'm going to school tomorrow. And that's when the parent is like, or or the coach, the
Wow.
success coach. That's not appropriate. You wouldn't say it that way immediately, but just having those conversations. Also, I was just gonna say for us, for our program on Mondays, we do music. Tuesday is um our coping skills I think we use, and then I just want to say Friday is our cooking activities, Catherine, right?
Okay.
So we have something every day that we put on our calendar that we help the staff, but the cooking, I just hearing you all talk about it just reiterates how important it is.
Yes, to use that good reminder because that is a section on there. We can start back using that cooking part, that
we
cooking.
put a we put a recipe on there every week too for them to do. And it doesn't always have to be like something that's you have to cook in the oven and things like that. It could be something simple as just making Play-Doh.
Okay.
Something
Okay.
like it could be making cooking could be making slime. It could be, those activities like that. Which can go back to art too, but just for example, if you're not out in the community where you always have a place to cook in an oven or a crock pot or whatever you're gonna do.
Okay.
So on the today's for the homework assignment for today, we're going to go look back through the coping skills for adults, and what I'd like you all to do is to what I'd like you all to do
Music,
is
too.
to write down coping skills in each area. Okay, that's the assignment.
You know what I think we should do too? When we write our notes, I think that they should kind of put more on there if they're sensory, if they're connections,
Yes.
active. I just not saying it's mandatory, but I think it'll help us to figure and work those through more. Because you don't want to just have one. And I think sometimes we get stuck with one, not
Mhm.
the others. I think a lot of children in like foster care miss a lot of the connections. I think they miss a lot of that.
So let's write down, let's do 4 coping skills in each area. Now, I really would, and now, again, this is probably sounds like a shameless plug. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, I don't know. But you got to get a planner, get a journal. These are our GPS to Success journals. You can order them from me, or you can just go out and get your own journal. But this is where you would put, because I would really like our QMHSs to have a playbook that they can work from at their disposal, right? And just, now sometimes we use journals for different things. So you can use part of the journal, half of the journal for your QMHS stuff, and then maybe the other half of the journal for your personal development notes. But get a journal, because you got to, like these assignments, they aren't just assignments for the sake of assignments. These are things that you will actually use when you start facilitating a group. So when you writing down these 4 coping skills in each area, that's going to be your playbook. What we'll also provide as an agency, we will provide to you lesson plans, if you will, or activities, guided activities where these things can come into play. Okay. So that's the assignment. I'm gonna save that. And then last week we worked on we got an assignment that we have 2 people turned it in, but if we can go back and review the Ohio Administrative Code for this, and then de-escalation. So you have 2 assignments from last week: de-escalation, reviewing OAC, the OAC rule, and coping skills for adults. So those are the 3 assignments that we have for this week. Okay.
In that classroom, I was just looking.
Yeah. Now everybody should have access to the classroom. If you don't, let me know, and we can get that squared away today. Miss McElroy, you have access, right, to the Google Classroom? Just give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can. I know you. Okay, I see you right here. Let me see my people. So we have.
Yep,
Yep.
she responded in there.
Okay, cool. All right, we got everybody. So we're good. So we all have the assignments. Everybody's in the class. I do read your responses, so please, put things in. We can go back and forth. And at this point, class is dismissed. If you guys have any questions, I'll be hanging here for a minute afterwards. Mrs. Murray and Miss Patty and myself and Mrs. Johnson. So if you have any questions, we'll be hanging out here for the next 5-10 minutes.
Do you ever feel like your brain falls out when you're emotional? Do you act stupid when you're infatuated, or you make bad decisions when you're scared or angry? Well, most people do, and there's a good reason for that. The rational part of your brain shuts down when it perceives a threat. It doesn't want complex thinking to get in the way of survival. So, examples of this for our ancestor could have been needing to run away from a tiger, or needing to eat something high in calories so they didn't starve to death, or falling in love so that they could reproduce. Today we experience all these same emotions when things get intense, but the circumstances are quite different. Our brain may enter survival mode when getting feedback from our boss at work, or when we have to talk to a big group of people. We may shut down when getting a bad grade on a school assignment, or when we get rejected by a crush. In these circumstances, allowing the brain to regress into survival mode, into our emotionally reactive limbic system, is not the best strategy. We all need a way to slow things down and think clearly so that we can make better choices that help us move through these uncomfortable situations instead of just reacting to them. Our brain and our emotions are incredible, powerful, wonderful things, but sometimes emotions make us act kind of stupid. In this video, you're going to learn 25 coping skills to help with anxiety, depression, and intense emotions. Coping skills are techniques you can use to get out of your emotional brain, back into your rational brain, so that you can think clearly again. The other day, I had a client who was 20 minutes late, and do you know what I did? I read key insights from Extreme Productivity and half of The Worry-Free Mind on the Blinkist app. I seriously love Blinkist because I seriously love reading, but I also don't have time to read all the books I want to. Now, today's video is sponsored by Blinkist. With Blinkist, you can read or listen to really clear, crisp summaries of the most important points of books, and you can do it in about 15 minutes. You can get the best insights from over 3,000 nonfiction books. With this app, you could read a book a day for a year, but in just 15 minutes. Now, I've already learned a bunch from the books that I've read, so here's some books I would recommend. Anything by Brené Brown, like her books The Gift of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, and Dare to Lead. Atomic Habits by James Clear. 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do by Amy Morin. So check it out. The first 100 people to click the link in the description will get 7 days of unlimited access to Blinkist completely free. So you could read a blink a day or more, and you could cancel anytime you want, or you can get the full membership for 25% off. So seriously, check it out. You're gonna love it. When I was volunteering in Argentina for a year and a half, we had a situation where we had been working really hard to help people, really pouring our souls out to try to help people improve their lives. And we were like physically, emotionally, spiritually giving everything we had. One day during a meeting, one of our local leaders, the man who was supposed to be supporting the work we were doing, he basically told us that all the people we were working with were losers and that there was no hope and that we were doing a terrible job. We finished that meeting late at night. We were exhausted, we were angry, we were discouraged, and my coworker called the president in tears. We were ready to just quit in that area. And our leader listened carefully and he said, "Hermanas, go to bed. Things will look better in the morning." And he was right. After we took a break, we came back to the problem refreshed after a night's sleep. We were able to go back to that leader with clarity to, confront the issue. And we were able to do a lot of good in that town. So, in this video, you're going to learn all about coping skills. If you're feeling like you're in crisis, if you feel like you're going to make bad choices, if you're afraid you might self-harm, or if you're just so emotional that you can't think clearly, HALT. Okay, this is an acronym to help you remember that if you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or if you're on substances, or if you're severely depressed or severely anxious or whatever, pause, slow yourself down, and reach out to the resources. So in the rest of this video, we're going to talk about some of the coping skills you can use, and we're going to develop a little bit of a crisis plan for the people you can connect with in case, something comes up that feels a little too big for you to handle in the moment. Coping skills are activities that we can do that help us calm down.
So again, coping skills are activities that we do to help us calm down. Coping skills are what we use with our clients to help them calm down. Let's go back to it.
Many of the best ones incorporate brain and body and don't have negative side effects like emotional eating or drugs do, right? Now, this is just a short list. There are hundreds of things that people can do to calm themselves down. And as you may know from my previous video, why I hate coping skills, I'm obviously not a huge fan of relying only on coping skills, but coping skills really do serve an important function in the short term. They often soothe or comfort us and help us calm down and make better choices. But coping skills do nothing to solve our problems in the long term, and some of them, if used exclusively, can be harmful. Coping skills help us take a break from our discomfort, but also from our life purpose. So that's why I get a little bugged when I hear that the only skill someone is learning in therapy is how to cope. Use coping skills to get through a crisis, to get calm, and then come back and resolve the problem. This
Deep right there. That is deep. That's a key point. You know, you use coping skills to get you through and to calm you down so you can think, we can think creatively. And that's so important, because a lot of times as we think about creative thinking, it's not necessarily creativity that's from an arts standpoint. It's creative that's coming from how to solve problems in your life.
ability to pause before choosing an action is an essential skill of emotionally resilient people. As we develop emotional muscles, we develop greater capacity to accept and resolve issues that come up for us. However, there will be times when we can't process the whole issue all at once. One definition of trauma is something that happens to us faster than we can process it. If we react immediately when we haven't had a chance to work through our thoughts, feelings, and physical reactions, then our actions often make things worse. On the other hand, if we just avoid the problem, we also suffer. So when an issue is just really big, or perhaps the time or place isn't right or safe for processing, we can use coping skills to keep ourselves calm or safe until we can go back to the problem and resolve it. As you go through this list, it's important to find a few coping skills that work for you in various settings. So find some that you can use at home, some for work, and others for when you're in a group of people. So let's jump in. First, there's sensory coping skills. These are helpful because they incorporate various parts of the brain and body, and they can soothe the core brain, that limbic brain where the fight, flight, freeze response stems from. These include stepping outside for a breath of fresh air, taking a walk, listening to music, feeling a comfortable texture, like a child holding a blanket or an adult holding a rosary, smelling an enjoyable smell, getting a massage, exercise, taking a hot shower or a cold face wash, knitting or sewing or building something. Now, let's talk about cognitive coping skills. These can help us process through the thoughts related to the emotion. So these can include writing everything down, like with a brain dump, journaling, meditation, mindfulness, prayer, coloring, guided imagery, and progressive muscle relaxation. Let's talk about active coping skills. These can help us feel safe and supported while facing challenges, right? So there's playing an instrument, making some music, humor, watching a funny clip on YouTube, watching TV. So be really careful. TV and most things with screens are powerful distractions that take up and turn off much of the brain and essentially prevent the brain from resolving issues. So if you find yourself getting trapped watching too much TV, then I would say don't use this one as a coping skill. It's fine in the short term or even in a crisis, but in the long run, it's not going to help you out. Some other coping skills include reading a book, doing a crossword, getting out in nature, planting some seeds, give yourself a facial, or expressing your emotions through art or music. Okay, let's talk about some connection coping skills. Hug someone, pet an animal, talk it out with a friend, write a letter to someone, or write out your difficulty in an email before talking with them. Now, using coping skills to avoid our problems can create a dependency on that activity. I've actually worked with people who have addictions to many of these coping skills. So I've seen addictions to TV, to shopping, to food, drugs, alcohol. I've seen addictions to Scrabble, video games, social media, eating, exercise, and other coping skills. So again, the way to tell if a coping skill is helpful is not only if it makes you feel good, but if it helps you return to resolve the problem. Healthy coping skills leave you feeling better the more you do it, but I mean better in the long run. So write down 3 activities that you can use to calm down when you're feeling overwhelmed with emotions. And try to think of at least one that will work in a different environment. So work, home, or school, etc. And then write down 3 people who you could contact in case of a mental health crisis. Who are your 3 go-to people that you could call if you're in crisis?
Situation here, in terms of what she just went through, 3 coping skills in different areas, and then 3 people that you can call in a crisis. This is also something that we could use ourselves when we are working in as a facilitator with the group, or talking or maybe having it one-on-one. But writing down 3 people that they can call in a crisis, their names and phone numbers and things like that. And that can go back into their plan as well. So absolutely, this would be something that feel free to duplicate this and use this during your group, as you're facilitating your groups.
Now, if you're experiencing a severe mental health crisis right now, please go to your local hospital or call 911. And I'd like you to research for your crisis plan, what are some of the mental health resources in your area? So what hotlines could you use?
Is our assignment. Research some of the resources in our area. That is our assignment for today as well.
A few resources. There's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and there's Safe Utah. Both of these allow you to chat with a crisis counselor live, either on the phone or through text messaging. And if you'd like to learn more about coping skills and self-care, you can check out my course on that topic. The link is in the description. As you work to develop your coping skills, you'll develop a greater ability to slow yourself down, make better choices, and get through those crises that do come up. Thank you for watching, and please take care. This video